My foster brother looked at me, a trace of guilt clouding his gaze. He said he could scarcely bear to part with me, but to protect my reputation, he had no choice but to send me to the military camp to learn discipline. At that moment, I caught sight of the heavenly script unfurling overhead. The heroine is about to be sent into the camp, it read. She will suffer terribly, humiliated by Deputy Commander Tua and his men, branded with shame, her body and spirit ravaged. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Later, when the male lead uncovers the schemes of the Green Tea Tua and her cousin, he will avenge our poor, pitiful heroine. Was this not the very essence of a tragedy romance? The heroine, framed by the cruel villainess, the male lead blind to the truth, her body and heart shattered, until at last he awakens to regret and chases after her among the ashes. I could not fathom what these lines shimmering across the sky truly were. For now, I called it the heavenly script. The heroine, was it speaking of me? By its account, I was the protagonist of some tale, and my foster brother, Jiang Xian, was the male lead. Because of Tua Tichi's slander, Jiang Xian harbored resentment toward me. He would send me into the military camp, forcing me to learn obedience. Little did he know, there, I would be treated as a mere courtesan by Tua Yubang, Tua Tichi's cousin, degraded, tormented, and threatened into silence. Every day brought fresh humiliation, fresh punishment. In the end, when Jiang Xian fell to his knees in the rain, fevered and weeping for my forgiveness, I would finally relent and allow him back into my heart. And together, we would pass the rest of our days in cloying affection. Upon reading this, I swept the entire sentencing table aside with one hand. Noonyuo, are you sulking again? His voice was heavy with feigned concern. It isn't as though I wished to be harsh. You toward me. The words trailed off, his expression etched with a pained struggle. Be good, he urged. Once you arrive at the camp, mind your conduct. Do not stir up trouble. Seeing I did not reply, he assumed I meant to defy him and pressed on. You are a man who fancies yourself in love, but cannot see your own cruelty. You cast the heroine into the camp, only to regret it after she is ruined. Then you crawl through the ashes to beg her back. How stale, how rancid this plot. I despise these stories most of all, the ones where the heroine's body and heart are trampled, only to be redeemed by the man who destroyed her. Another voice echoed in my mind. One more vote. I, too, cannot abide tales that revel in the debasement of women. If you seek a strong heroine, do look elsewhere. This is the channel of tragedy. I watched Jiang Xian prattle on, a tide of revulsion rising within me. The very man I had once clung to as my salvation now seemed loathsome. Judging by his oblivious expression, he could not see the heavenly script, whether its words were truth or fancy. I would never permit myself to be sent into that camp. I let out a cold, faint laugh. Even if you are a general, you have no right to decide my fate at your whim. Beside me, Tua Tichi dabbed delicately at her tears, all the while stealing furtive glances my way, as if she were truly afraid of me. Meanwhile, the heavenly script overhead continued its ceaseless transformations. Oh, so this was the original text. The heroine dares to resist. I had never noticed this before. Futile. The male leads will is set in stone. None can alter it. Jiang Xian spoke again, his voice colder than before. Noonyuo, when I brought you back to my household, you were not as you are now. I have said already, it is only for a time, so you may learn propriety. Then I will bring you home. I straightened my back, adopting the bearing of a noble-born maiden. Meeting Jiang Xian's eyes without flinching, I spoke. I am the legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Dingyuan. Though my father and elder brothers have passed, our household still stands. Our kin yet live. As for discipline, surely it need not trouble the general's conscience. Never before had I dared address him thus. Once, I had been too grateful for his kindness in sheltering me at my lowest ebb. For a breath, Jiang Xian stared at me in silent shock, perhaps astonished that I, who had always been meek and yielding, would now speak of my departed father and brothers. Noonyuo, are you not overwrought today? He murmured. I was a friend to your brothers. I have always held your father in respect. When they fell on the battlefield, it was only out of duty that I took you in. Could it be, you resent me? At my side, my maidservant, Luer, tugged lightly at my sleeve. She leaned close and whispered, Miss, we cannot confront him openly yet. He is the Grand General. He holds command of the armies. And yet, my Marquis still stood, though those lurking vultures watched for any chance to pounce. Lure's words, of course, I understood well. Anything I wished to do would require long and patient calculation. But this time, I would never allow myself to be sent to the military camp. Suppressing the hatred seething within me, I forced myself to don the guise of meekness I had once worn. Elder brother Jiang, you know well that it is only fear. I lowered my gaze, voice trembling. I fear that, once I arrive at the camp, I shall be haunted by memories of my father and brothers, and lose myself in grief. Even as I spoke, I arranged my features into a look of sorrow so profound that tears shimmered at the corners of my eyes. Seeing me thus, Jiang Xian seemed at last to recall the kin I had lost. A trace of reluctance softened his expression, and after a moment's hesitation, he inclined his head. This matter can wait, he said quietly. For now, apologize to Tuatichi. I chose to ignore his demand, as though I had not heard it. Elder brother Jiang, tomorrow, Her Majesty the Empress Dowager will summon me in audience. At the mention of the Empress Dowager, Jiang Xian's face darkened with an uneasy respect. He flicked his sleeve and turned to leave. Tuatichi watched him walk away without pressing the matter further. She cast me a venomous glare before hurrying after him. As soon as they were gone, I sank onto the edge of the bed, dazed. Lure stood at my side, her brows knitted in worry. My lady, General Jiang was never like this before. Ever since the Marquis and the heir fell on the battlefield, your kin have been circling the household like jackals, clamoring to take charge of you. If it hadn't been for the general stepping in, how could we have withstood them? And now, he would send you into the camp to be taught submission. Indeed, I could not fathom it, no matter how I turned it over in my mind. The memories returned in fragments. Jiang Xian, once merely a deputy under my father's command. How father came to trust him, promote him, raise him step by step. When my father and elder brothers fell, it was Jiang Xian who defied every whisper of scandal to bring me to his estate, caring for me with meticulous gentleness, as though he feared I might suffer the least injustice. And yet now, merely for a few murmured slanders from Tuatichi, he had steeled himself to such cruelty, resolved to cast me into the camp. I reached for the jade pendant my father once bestowed, still resting upon my bedside table. My fingers brushed over its cool surface. Lure, I murmured, my voice low and unsteady, tell me, has Jiang Xian been drugged with some enchantment by Tuatichi? Or was this who he truly was all along? Lure bit her lip, her eyes blazing with indignation. My lady, that wretched Tuatichi has never been anything but a serpent, feigning her frailty and pitiful tears all day, and the general has swallowed every drop of her poison. I let out a slow breath, my thoughts already drifting to tomorrow's audience. The Empress Dowager and my grandmother had been dearest friends in their girlhood. When grandmother passed, Her Majesty had wished to bring me into the palace to raise me herself. But then, I had chosen to remain, to guard the Marquis in my father's stead. Later, when the terrible news came of my family's deaths, the crisis fell so swiftly there was no time to beg the Empress Dowager's aid. Besides, every favor spent was one less to call upon. Such debts could not be squandered lightly. When my kin pressed me to adopt some dissipated wastrel as heir to the incense and name of my family, when they schemed to marry me off as they pleased, it was Jiang Xian who appeared, who turned the tide in a single stroke. Frightened by his power, they finally retreated. The Jiang estate lay close by the Marquis, and so it was that, from that day forward, I called Jiang Xian my elder brother. Throughout Great Chu, his name had long been honored, his virtue proclaimed far and wide. Perhaps that was why the Empress Dowager, seeing that I had a place of refuge, never intervened on my behalf. Lure, I said softly, fetch my pale violet cloud-patterned brocade robe, and the white jade hairpin as well. Yes, my lady. She bowed and slipped away to prepare my attire. I walked to the window, gazing out into the midnight sky, black as ink. The same sky where the heavenly script had once appeared. In my heart, I offered up a silent prayer that tomorrow, all might pass without disaster. The next morning, I rose early, dressing and arranging my hair with care. The carriage creaked-ing the road toward the imperial palace. With every turn of its wheels, the tightness in my chest grew worse. At last, we arrived. Led by eunuchs, I crossed one polished threshold after another, until we came to the Empress Dowager's private chambers. Upon entering, I beheld Her Majesty seated upon a high couch. At her side stood a young lord, sword-browed, star-eyed, his bearing strikingly refined. I felt a flicker of surprise, but did not dare inquire. Instead, I stepped forward and bowed low. Your subject, Du Nuo, pays her respects to the Empress Dowager. Her Majesty smiled and inclined her head. Noor, you may rise. I summoned you today because there is something I wish to discuss. I straightened and lowered my gaze in silent deference. She turned her eyes to the young lord and spoke. This is Yu Xian, only son of the Grand General of Jinyuan. He is near your age. Recently, his mother visited the palace and spoke highly of you as a virtuous young lady. She hoped the two of you might meet. Oh, the second male lead had appeared at last. From childhood, he had harbored a quiet love for the heroine, though she never guessed it. In the end, when he learned she had suffered, he personally castrated that vile deputy Tuo, all because he feared Du Nuo might be hurt. Even while his heart ached with unspoken longing, even when Jiang Xian spurned and tormented her, he was always there in the shadows, offering his silent aid. In those darkest days when Du Nuo wished for death itself, he had once thought to cast everything aside, to take her far away, beyond the reach of every scheme and cruelty. But when he returned to find she had forgiven Jiang Xian, he could only stand in silence, watching from the shadows, before quietly turning to leave. I lifted my gaze, glancing toward Yu Xian. He was looking at me with such gentle regard, a faint smile lingering at his lips. Remembering the words revealed by the heavenly script, my heart stirred in confusion. I did not know how to reply. Your Majesty, I said at last, my voice soft and low, this humble woman is still in mourning, my thoughts yet bound to the memory of my father and elder brothers. For now, I have no wish to consider affairs of the heart. The Empress Dowager paused, then smiled faintly. Noor, I know you are a girl of steadfast feeling, but you must not let such devotion ruin all your future prospects. Yu Gongzi is of fine character and noble birth, the sole son of the Grand General of Jinyuan. In truth, you are well matched. Yu Xian inclined his head and spoke in a calm, warm voice. Miss Du, I mean no offense. It is only that, upon meeting you, I felt as though we were old friends reunited. If ever you should require aid, I pray you will not hesitate to ask. I would never refuse you. Ah, look at him. If you asked for his very life, he would place it in your hands without question. See how tightly he clenches his fingers, how much restraint he holds. When the heroine was first sent to the military camp, he had been far away on imperial orders in Damzhou. Upon his return, he had ridden his horses to death, one after another, desperate to reach her, only to discover she had already been exiled to the bitter frontier. He had believed, naively, that though the north was cold and harsh, Jiang Xian would never let Du Nuo suffer too greatly. Yet Tua Yubang and Tua Tichi had twisted Jiang Xian's commands into a pretext for unspeakable torment. Ah, truly, Du Nuo belonged to Jiang Xian, but Yu Xian belonged to all of us. That foolish bun of a man, Jiang Xian, let anyone who wants him have him. Our girl deserves to be brilliant and unbound. Whether the heavenly script spoke truth or not, Yu Xian's words touched me despite myself. I lowered my head in a graceful salute. Many thanks, Yu Gongzi. If ever I truly have need of assistance, I will not stand on ceremony. The Empress Dowager watched us, her eyes softening with quiet approval. Good, she said gently. Young people should meet and speak often. Who knows what fate may hold? Just then, the voice of a eunuch rang out beyond the curtain. General Jiang requests audience with your Majesty. My heart gave a hard, painful throb. Why had Jiang Xian come at such a moment? The Empress Dowager's brows drew together in a faint line. Very well, she said. Let him enter. Jiang Xian stepped into the chamber. His eyes flicked over me and Yu Xian, pausing for an instant before he came forward to kneel. Your subject Jiang Xian pays respects to the Empress Dowager. She regarded him coolly. General Jiang, what brings you here today? His gaze shifted toward me, then steadied. Your Majesty, I have come to report a matter concerning Du Nuo. Again, my heart contracted. What did he intend to say? The Empress Dowager arched a brow. "Oh, speak, then." Jiang Xian cleared his throat and said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, of late Du Nua's conduct has grown unsettled. I believe it best she be sent to the military camp to learn proper discipline. I came today to seek your permission." The Empress Dowager's face darkened. She turned to me. "Noir, are these accusations true?" I fell to my knees at once. "Your Majesty, I have committed no impropriety. It is only that General Jiang has lent an ear to slander and grown suspicious without cause." Yu Xian stepped forward as well, his tone clear and firm. "Your Majesty, Miss Du has always been dignified in bearing, never once overstepped courtesy. General Jiang's proposal is ill-considered." Jiang Xian's eyes flashed with displeasure. "Yu Gongzi, this is a matter between myself and Du Nua. I must ask you not to interfere." Yu Xian smiled faintly. "General Jiang, as Du Nua was summoned here by Her Majesty, and as I am her friend, it would be remiss of me to stand silent while she is unjustly maligned." The Empress Dowager raised a hand, her expression sharpening. "Enough. There is no need to quarrel in my presence. General Jiang, Du Nua, is the legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Dingyuan. If you truly mean to send her to the military camp, you must consider carefully. Since when does learning propriety require exile to the frontier? Do you doubt the competence of my own household's instructors?" At that, Jiang Xian's face drained of color. Everyone knew that Madame Li, who served the Empress Dowager, had tutored many nobles. Even the present Empress herself had learned under her hand. Not even Jiang Xian would dare impugn such authority. He lowered his head swiftly. "Your subject obeys your Majesty's will." Inside, I felt a wave of relief so profound I nearly trembled. My eyes lifted, brimming with silent gratitude, to the Empress Dowager and to Yu Xian. The Empress Dowager inclined her head to me with a smile. "Very well. Return home for now. I shall send Madame Li to your residence in due course." I pressed my forehead to the floor in deep obeisance. "Your Majesty's grace humbles me." Luer and I withdrew from the chamber together. Behind us, Jiang Xian also turned to leave. Outside the palace gates, he called my name. When I turned to face him, his eyes were shadowed and unreadable. "Noir, why did you act so before Her Majesty?" I met his gaze without flinching. My voice was cold as winter. "General Jiang, must you ask? If you truly cared for me, you would never have heeded Tuok Tichi's venom, never have tried to send me away. You know well that place would haunt me with every memory of my father and brothers. Yet still I had spoken of my departed father and brothers deliberately." Jiang Xian's lips parted, as though he wished to say something. But in the end, he uttered nothing at all. I did not trouble myself to look at him again. Turning away, I climbed into the carriage. Luer followed silently after me. The wheels began their slow, measured creak along the road back to the estate. I leaned against the wall of the carriage, my heart a tangle of thoughts. Though today I had, for the moment, escaped the fate of being sent to the military camp, I knew well that Jiang Xian and Tuo Tichi would not relent so easily. The road ahead would only grow more treacherous. But no matter what trials awaited me, I would never allow anyone to seize hold of my destiny again. I thought of those lines in the heavenly script. Yu Xian truly cared for me. Perhaps in these dire straits, I might dare to call upon his aid. He was, after all, the sole son of the Grand General of Jinyuan. His power and influence were far beyond anything I could muster as a woman confined within the secluded chambers of a marquisate. "Luer," I said softly, "bring paper and ink. I wish to write a letter." "To whom will you write, my lady?" "To Yu Xian." Luer could not suppress a small laugh. "Miss, to think you are acquainted with Yu Gongzi himself. How enviable." I made as if to strike her, and she danced away, giggling. Yet when I took up the brush, my brow furrowed again. In our present plight, he may be the only one we can rely upon. Ah, Nor, be brave, and ask Yu Xian's help if you must. The man is only too willing to be troubled on your behalf. Most of those in my household were Jiang Xian's creatures. If I wished to watch Tuo Tichi, I could only beg Yu Xian to send his own men. As I had expected, perhaps learning that the Empress Dowager had dispatched Madame Li to instruct me, Tuo Tichi began to grow restless. Several days later, Yu Xian requested to meet me at a tea house. He came clad in dark martial robes, his bearing tall and resolute, a quiet strength radiating from him. His expression was grave as he drew several folded sheets from his breast. These reports were gathered by the men I set to watch them, he said. Until yesterday, Tua Tichi and Tua Yubang made no obvious moves. But last night, they began to act. Heavens above, that viper Tua Tichi, unable to send me to the military camp, had devised a far more poisonous scheme. This ploy was cruel beyond measure. The Empress Dowager prized propriety and had appointed Madame Li to instruct me. If, in such a time, rumors spread that I had been caught in lewd conduct with a stable hand, then no affection for my grandmother would suffice to shield me. Indeed, in this age, to destroy a woman, all one need do was destroy her reputation. Once her virtue was stained, she could scarcely be called alive at all. Not only in the past, even in the so-called modern world the heavenly script described. If a woman were so defamed, though she might have family and friends to defend her, how many could ever truly recover? And here, where chastity was the very marrow of a woman's worth, how much more vicious such a weapon became. I did not know where that modern age might be, but Tua Tichi's treachery made me tremble with fury. That she-devil, to conceive such a despicable means to ruin me. Yu Xian's brows drew tight, his gaze steady and unwavering. Miss Du, he said quietly, do not be alarmed. Now that we have unmasked their plot, we will not allow them to succeed. Rather, we shall meet deceit with cunning, and let the villains taste the fruit of their own poison. I looked at him in wary astonishment. Meet deceit with cunning. Yu Gongzi, what plan do you propose? A faint smile touched his lips. He leaned closer, voice low as he outlined his scheme. When he had finished, my eyes lit with resolve. Yu Gongzi, your plan is brilliant. Let us carry it out as you have said. After Madame Li came to the estate, I conducted myself as always, attending her lessons in decorum. But on the night Tua Tichi chose to set her snare, I invited Madame Li to accompany me to the Du family's ancestral residence. In years past, and at Jiang Xian's own petition, I had dwelled in the Jiang estate, no different from a housekeeper in all but name. At first, my days had passed in uneasy peace. But ever since Tua Tichi set foot within those walls, everything had changed. Tua Yubang was Jiang Xian's trusted aide. And for Tua Tichi, Jiang Xian spared no favor. When they went to the frontier to wage war, she had come to reside in the Jiang estate. She had coveted Jiang Xian from the first, and when she saw that his regard for me exceeded any other, her envy festered into malice. At first, Jiang Xian would still heed my counsel, but as her calumnies dripped like poison into his ears, his heart turned ever colder. Her stratagems were petty things, feigning a fall and accusing me of pushing her, dressing herself in coarse cloth and whispering I refused her better fabric. Such things were trifles, but this time, I brought Madame Li with me back to the Du family's deserted house. Deep in the night, I went to her chamber and knocked gently. Madam, forgive me for disturbing you at such an hour. It is only yesterday, I left a certain medicine behind in my chamber at the Jiang estate. Might I trouble you to accompany me to retrieve it? Madame Li was strict by nature, but her heart was kind. She suspected nothing. With a word of assent, she wrapped herself in her cloak and followed me. And there, impatient to witness my downfall, Tua Tichi herself stepped boldly into my rooms. No sooner had she crossed the threshold than a stable hand seized her in a lecherous embrace. Tua Tichi's face went white with horror. Plainly, she had not expected this turn of events. The man, believing her to be me, clung to her and would not let go. His hands grew ever more presumptuous. His breath rank with wine. At that moment, Jiang Xian returned in haste, summoned by a message. A message Tua Tichi's own allies had spread, claiming some scandal was afoot in the household. Fearing what had occurred, he had spurred his horse near to breaking. When he reached the door to my chamber and found chaos within, his face darkened in fury. Du Nual, he roared. What trick are you playing now? What is the meaning of a man's voice in your rooms? Within, Tua Tichi felt her heart seize in terror at the sound of his voice. All she could do was hope that her cousin, Deputy Tua, would have the wit to realize she was not in the chamber. But how could Tua Yubang possess such discernment? General, he sneered. The sound seemed to be coming from within. He clicked his tongue. Who would have thought our noble Miss Du would be so starved for affection, summoning a man to her chamber in the dead of night? TCH. A titled lady of such pedigree, yet in my eyes, she's no better than a common whore. The lackeys gathered at his back immediately joined the chorus of jeers, their mouths spilling filth and slander. Oh, I stepped out from behind them, my pace unhurried, my voice cool. Since when did I begin inviting men into my room at midnight? Tua Yubang turned at the sound, only to freeze as though struck dumb. Why are you here? If I am not here, where should I be? Tonight, I returned to the old Du residence with Madame Li. I lifted my chin, meeting each gaze without flinching. Rather, I would ask you, what business have you, standing guard before my chamber at such an hour? What is it you expected to find within? At my every word, Tua Yobang's composure frayed further. He turned, as though to bar Jiang Xian's path. But Jiang Xian was no man to be deterred. This was his estate. When word came that something foul was afoot, how could he simply stand by? He strode forward, booted the door open with a single blow, and froze at the sight within. His face blanched, his eyes wide with horror and disgust. In the next instant, he kicked the stable hand off Tua Tichi's writhing figure. His voice was a rasp of disbelief. Tichi, how could you? How could you do such a thing? Only then did Tua Tichi rouse herself from her stupor. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she scrambled for words. Brother Jiang, this filthy stable hand dragged me here. He must be part of Du Nua's plot. Jiang Xian's eyes darkened, suspicion flickering between her and me. I laughed, cold and bright as winter. If I truly meant to ruin her, do you imagine I would have her carried into my own chamber? I should rather ask you, Tua Miss, what business had you here, creeping about in the night? And that stable hand, was he not your creature? My gaze was pitiless as it fell upon her tear-streaked face. Jiang Xian drew his dagger and pressed it to the stable hand's throat. Speak, he ordered. Who sent you here? The man shook so violently he could scarcely remain upright. His gaze darted past Jiang Xian, toward Tua Yubang and the cluster of thugs behind him. His lips parted, but before he could utter a word, Tua Yobang's blade flashed, burying itself in his heart. The man toppled lifeless to the floor. Tua Yobang's voice was low and contemptuous. General, vermin like this deserve no better. Whether he was here for Miss Du or Tichi, the scandal will taint them both. Dead is better. Cleaner. Jiang Xian turned on him, his eyes heavy with suspicion. Yet at last he only nodded, his jaw clenched. Dispose of the corpse, he commanded. Feed it to the dogs. So he meant to let this end here. At that moment, Madame Li, who had remained silent all this while, lifted her eyes to me in a look of subtle understanding. Then she spoke, her voice steady as iron. I had not intended to interfere. Yet, as I was appointed by Her Majesty to instruct Miss Du in propriety, I can hardly remain silent. General Jiang, is this how you manage your household? An incident unexamined, the dead left without testimony, the cause unproven. Do you imagine such measures will blind the world to the truth? She paused, her gaze unwavering. Shall I suppose you conduct matters of state with the same negligence? When I return to the palace, I will be duty-bound to report the entire affair to Her Majesty. I felt the tightness in my chest ease, relief flooding me. Madame Li bore me no resentment for using her authority in my design. But Jiang Xian's face had grown steadily darker. He opened his mouth, ready to protest. Only for Yu Xian to stride into the courtyard, his steps swift and unerring. At once, Tua Yobang's eyes darted out in panic, searching for escape. But Yu Xian's men had already surrounded the place, steel glinting in the torchlight. Tua Yubang lunged, hoping to break free, and Yu Xian's boots smashed into his chest, driving him to the ground. Deputy Tua, he said, his voice low and cold. Your schemes are finished. Have you anything left to say? Tua Yobang's face twisted in hate. Don't be so smug. This isn't over. I swear it. Jiang Xian turned on Yu Xian, voice sharp with affront. Yu Gongzi, do you take such liberties in my house? Have you no respect? Yu Xian flung a sheaf of documents at his feet. They scattered across the stones, irrefutable. Your deputy, together with this Tua woman, conspired to ruin an innocent woman's name. Worse yet, he is guilty of trafficking women and even children. Here, see for yourself. Evidence, witnesses, ledgers, all in order. I mean to lay these before His Majesty himself, and charge you with failure to govern your men. His gaze was steady, unflinching. Will you try to stop me, General? Jiang Xian's face had gone ashen. It seemed he could scarcely comprehend it. That his trusted confidant, and the woman he had favored were the architects of such crimes. Yet there was no room left for doubt. Yu Xian's evidence was complete. Witnesses, documents, names. He could neither deny nor conceal. In the end, Tua Tichi and Tua Yubang were taken away to face judgment. Soon after, Jiang Xian himself presented a memorial to the throne, confessing his failure and pleading to be punished. From that day forward, he kept his silence, haunted, a shadow of the man he had been. Yet in my heart, I knew this was not the end. The heavenly script had remained blank for a long while now. What story was this? Where had all the tragic turns gone? Tua Tichi, who had stirred so much poison, was dispatched so easily. Ah, my tragedy. If you crave a tale of endless torment, look elsewhere. This stage belongs to Du Nua, who has awakened, who will never again be any man's pawn. But tell me, could Du Nua and Jiang Xian ever truly be together again? I always preferred a story with a happy ending. After all, had Jiang Xian truly done anything so unforgivable? Done nothing. No. I was beginning to question even the deaths of Du Nua's father and elder brother. How could it have been mere coincidence, both of them falling into ambush at once? Clearly, some hand had laid that trap long before. As those words unfurled across the heavenly script, my thoughts grew ever more disordered. Jiang Xian, that general, how exactly had he ascended to such heights? They said it was he who salvaged the rout. When my father's forces were broken by the enemy, it was Jiang Xian who rallied the remnants and struck back, forcing the invaders to retreat. They said he had pleaded before the throne on my family's behalf, that without him, my father and brother's disgrace would never have been wiped away, even in death. But was it truly so simple? Doubt took root in me. At first, I had thought, once Tua Tichi was unmasked, to leave the Jiang estate behind, to return to the Marquis and find some measure of peace. Yet now, only by remaining near him could I hope to uncover the truth. I could not believe my father and brother were reckless glory hounds, that they would sacrifice 100,000 men for pride. Swallowing every misgiving, I returned to the Jiang estate, determined to play my part. I no longer called him General Jiang. Instead, my voice softened, addressing him as I once had. Elder brother Jiang. Day by day, I cared for him attentively, inquired after his health, spoke to him with a quiet, gentle concern. When he worked deep into the night, I would bring a bowl of hot porridge to his study. When he read through dispatches, I would discreetly withdraw so as not to disturb him. These small, yielding gestures seemed to please him greatly. He began, little by little, to discuss even matters of state in my hearing. Outwardly, Jiang Xian appeared a man of spotless virtue, a general who served the realm with all his strength, who distributed grain to the hungry, who won the gratitude of the common folk. But was there truly any man so perfect? One who never erred, who bore no blame, while every sin belonged only to those around him. That day, I accompanied the steward of the Jiang estate to purchase grain for the relief effort. Leaving the granary, I noticed something amiss. The ruts the carts had left in the dust were not those I recognized. They were deeper, heavier, than any I had seen used before. I committed the detail to memory, and as I pondered this, the heavenly script began to shimmer again. Such a dull story. I had thought I might see the heroine overturn all her fates, but no. She clings to Jiang Xian without question. Not even a concubine in name, just some lovelorn creature trailing after him. Ah, how pitiful for Yu Xian, who waits still, who cannot stop caring. Those judgments meant little to me, but my next steps would require Yu Xian's aid. Well then, if I have troubled him once, I will not hesitate to trouble him again. In these days, I no longer knew whom I could trust. After bidding the steward farewell, I took lure and sought out Yu Xian, telling him everything I had discovered. He set to work at once, and from that single thread, Yu Xian unearthed a revelation so grave it made my blood run cold. Beneath the sacks of rice carted beyond the city walls, lay crates upon crates of weapons, hidden from any casual eye. Their destination, none other than Namhua, our rival across the border. Jiang Xian. In secret, he had forged arms within Great Chu itself, and under the guise of charity, sent them to Namhua for a pittance. So it was, under the banner of feeding the poor, he had committed treason, a betrayal of staggering audacity. Yu Xian's voice was low, unflinching. If this is true, Then I suspect the ambush that claimed your father and brother was no accident. There must have been a traitor, someone who sold their plans and defenses to the enemy. What was this? I no longer understood this tale. Treason. Betrayal. Jiang Xian. Was he not the male lead? I had known. Had sensed something was wrong. If he truly cared for me, why had he listened to Tua Tichi's lies, sent me to that camp? He was a general. He could not have been ignorant of what went on beneath his own roof. He had allowed Tua Tichi to torment me. He had closed his eyes and pretended it was none of his concern. The words on the heavenly script struck me like hammer blows. Perhaps, from the moment Jiang Xian first reached out his hand to help me, he had already resolved to keep me within his grasp. And in that first life, if life it truly was, when Tua Tichi and the rest dragged me through torment after torment, he had merely played Aang. Then, all of it made sense. Once Yu Xian held this proof, he did not waste a single hour. He escorted me straight into the palace to lay everything before the throne. When I returned to the Jiang estate, the night was already deep. Jiang Xian sat alone in his study, his expression alight, as though he had achieved some great triumph. Still lost in the glow of his own victory. Noor, I wish to marry you. The moment Jiang Xian laid eyes on me, he did not ask why I had returned so late. Instead, he spoke those words without preamble. I regarded him calmly, a faint smile curving my lips, and inclined my head. Very well. The 5th day of next month is an auspicious date, he said, his eyes bright with fervor. I shall come in person to escort you. Afterward, we will ride to the frontier, to share our joy with the old comrades of your father and brother. He spoke with such enthusiasm, as though no shadow could mar his triumph. Again, I nodded gently. So, he meant to use the wedding itself as cover for his schemes. That suited me perfectly. Indeed, it aligned with my own intent. When Yu Xian learned I intended to wed Jiang Xian, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. But in the end, he swallowed whatever words rose in him and remained silent. At once, the heavenly script seethed with indignation. Noir, how can you marry Jiang Xian? You know he is a traitor. Ah, you'll drive me mad. Yu Xian, seize her, kiss her, cry out that even bitter fruit is still fruit. I swear, if I could leap into that world, I would help him carry you away myself. Oh, my poor darling, why give yourself to that wretch, when you know the truth? But, I believe in you, Nor. You must have your reasons. We'll see. I looked at him quietly. Yu Gongzi, if you were to come for me that day, Yu Xian started, astonishment and a fragile hope mingling in his gaze. At last, a dawning joy trembled at the corners of his eyes. His voice was low, unsteady. Truly, you would consent. I nodded once, firmly. I said no more. After giving Jiang Xian my answer that night, I returned to the Marquisate of Dingyuan to prepare for the wedding. Time passed swiftly. In the blink of an eye, the 5th day of the month arrived. Jiang Xian led an imposing procession to collect his bride. Banners streaming across the sky, drums and gongs resounding as the cortege rolled through the gates of the Du estate. By his design, the bridal palanquin circled the inner city before slowly proceeding beyond the walls. I knew, within those lavish wedding chests, he had concealed every weapon and secret document. This was why he insisted the ceremony be held on the frontier. Only then could he smuggle Great Chu's military maps and supplies across the border to Namwa. As I sat in the palanquin, a restless dread coiled through me. Yu Xian, you will come, won't you? I tightened my grip around the lacquered tube in my hand. Inside was poison enough for us both. If he did not come, then I would die with Jiang Xian. Just as the palanquin neared the city gates, a thunder of hooves rose from the distance. I lifted the curtain and looked out. Yu Xian rode at the head of a column, clad in the scarlet robes of a bridegroom. He sat tall upon his horse, a force of men arrayed behind him, resolute and unyielding. General Jiang, he called, his voice ringing clear across the road. I must ask you to halt. Jiang Xian, astride a white stallion, was still basking in the acclamations of the crowd. But the moment he saw Yu Xian in his wedding robes, the triumph in his eyes darkened to a black, consuming rage. Yu Gongzi, he said coldly, on the day I wed, you bar my path in the street. What is your purpose? Yu Xian met his gaze without flinching. I am here, to take the bride. A collective gasp rippled through the throng. Jiang Xian's face turned ashen. His jaw clenched. His hands knotted down the reins. You Gongzi, he ground out. Do not be reckless. This is my wedding to Noir. If you defy the rights and the laws of the realm, you will answer for it. A dangerous light kindled in his eyes. But Yuxian only smiled faintly, lifting a hand. At once, his soldiers moved. Several men strode forward and flung open the ornate chests one by one, revealing not only silks and jewels, but sheaves of secret orders, military ledgers. Every proof of Jiang Xian's treachery. Jiang Xian, Yuxian said quietly. What defense remains to you now? He drew forth a single scroll and held it high above his head. Citizens of Great Chu. His voice rang out, fierce and unwavering. Behold the evidence of this man's crimes. He who claims to be your defender has conspired with Namhua, has sold our secrets for his own gain. All around us, the crowd erupted in a clamor of disbelief and horror. Jiang Xian's face went white as bone. For an instant, panic flickered in his eyes. But almost at once, he smothered it beneath a veneer of cold control. Yushitsi, he said, voice raw, do not dare to slander me. These are forgeries. A vile attempt to ruin me. Yuxian's gaze was sharp as a drawn blade. Jiang Xian, did you think you could blind this kingdom forever? Did you think your crimes would remain hidden forever? Yuxian's voice rang out, steady as steel. Today, I shall strip away your mask. Before all the world. He turned, sweeping his gaze over the assembled crowd, then spoke in a voice that carried to every corner of the square. People of Great Chu, you have never known the truth. This man, Jiang Xian, he is no general of this realm. A hush fell, so complete it was as though the city itself held its breath. He is a prince of Namhua, hidden away beyond our borders since childhood. He came to Great Chu not to serve, but to betray, to worm his way into the court's trust, to steal our secrets and rot this kingdom from within. A roar of shock swept the crowd. Men and women gaped at Jiang Xian as though seeing a stranger in his place. It was he, Yuxian's voice thundered, who betrayed the Marquis of Dingyuan and his sons. He who delivered every plan, every position, into enemy hands. The battle you remember. We had victory within our grasp. And because of this man, thousands upon thousands fell. How many of your husbands and fathers, your brothers and sons, died for his ambition? How many innocents has he crushed beneath his heel? Yuxian's eyes blazed, fixed on Jiang Xian. From within the bridal palanquin, I heard it all. My heart cracked open with a grief so fierce it scorched me to the bone. The faces of my father, my brother, their gentle smiles, the warmth of their hands, rushed through my mind like a torrent. Tears spilled unchecked down my cheeks. Jiang Xian, you wretched coward, return my father and brother to me. I burst from the palanquin, lifted my hand to point straight at him, my voice ragged with rage. He looked back at me, and for an instant, guilt flickered across his face. But almost at once, it drowned beneath the darkness of his ambition. Noir, I had no choice. His voice broke. I have a duty to Namhua. I was born to claim this realm. Silence. Yuxian's voice cut through him like a blade. Traitor, you dare speak of destiny. You trampled 1,000 lives for your own greed. May heaven judge you as you deserve. Jiang Xian's jaw tightened. He knew there was no escape left. In a sudden motion, he drew the sword at his hip. But before he could lift it, Yuxian's soldiers surged forward. They wrested the blade from his grasp, forced him to his knees. Seize this traitor, Yuxian commanded. He shall await judgment at the emperor's pleasure. The crowd erupted in cheers that shook the walls. Faces wet with tears, voices ragged with relief. So many among them had lost kin on that field. I watched as Jiang Xian was dragged away, and though he vanished into the press of soldiers, the bitterness in my heart did not fade. If not for him, my father and brother might still have lived, but I would not allow grief to devour me. I turned to Yuxian, my gaze steady, my voice thick with feeling. You Gongzi, thank you. Had it not been for you, I might never have cleansed this blood debt. You owe me no thanks, he said, looking faintly abashed. If not for your keen eye, for your courage in uncovering the grain carts, we would never have unraveled this plot. This is not my triumph alone. It is ours. One for the safety of Great Chu. For justice itself. I nodded, unspeakable gratitude swelling in my chest. But before I could step away, he caught my hand. Noir. His voice was low, unshakable. This time, you will not refuse me, will you? I swear. In this life and every life. I will cherish you, our first child. I will see that he bears your family's name. And whatever you wish for, I will help you make it so. Heat rose to my cheeks, but I nodded. 1,000 sorrows behind us. And ahead, a road we would walk together. Ah, at last. That wretch Jiang Xian has fallen. How sweet it is to see. And Yu Xian, finally, he has spoken the words we waited for. I lowered my head in a silent bow to the heavenly script shining in the sky. Beside me, Yu Xian, though puzzled, followed suit, solemn as any priest. Thank you, you watchers in the heights. Without you, I might never have glimpsed the truth. Perhaps, had you not been there, my fate would have ended in tragedy, just as you once foretold. Ah, our girl has seen us at last. Yu Xian, mind your manners. If not for us, you'd still be unmarried. The heroine has awakened. The second lead has risen in her place. The tale is complete. Scatter your blossoms. Let the story end. The end.